Edouard Duval-Carrié was born in Haiti. He lives and works in Miami, Florida, but he has had quite a voyage through the world. He grew up in Haiti, but lived in Puerto Rico, lived in Canada, lived in France. Now we're lucky to have him in Miami. He draws upon the complexities of French heritage in the post-Duvalier Haiti, and his recent works explore the migration of not only Haitians leaving Haiti, but the voodoo gods leaving as well. He personalizes in a visual way these deities and gives them faces. They are a blend of transplanted West African religious icons and 18th century French Rococo, employing tropical colors and modern-day stories of corruption and displacement. Duval-Carrié received Bachelor of Arts at the University of Loyola in Montreal, Quebec, and furthered his formal training at the École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts in Paris. He is represented by Bernice Steinbaum Gallery in Miami and has exhibited within the United States and internationally. Recent exhibitions include the Museum of Art in Miami, Florida, the Halles Saint-Pierre in Paris, Phoenix Art Museum, Azcuate Galleria in Mexico, and Mackey Gallery in Houston. And two of his most recent exhibitions include at the Savannah College of Art and Design and the Fowler Museum at the University of California in Los Angeles. Please welcome Edouard Duval-Carrié.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm delighted to be part of the symposium, and I think it's going to be a little bit of a different register from Maria Fernanda's interests. Mine are basically stems from an interest in finding out where home really is, and what is home, and what does constitute that. And in the process, we have to go back a little bit, and it started when I was displaced a little bit, when I was invited by the French government to celebrate their bicentennial, and in their infinite wisdom, they wanted to know what was left of those concepts that are 200 years old, what were left in Haiti of those, of that particular period. They invited me to France, and it was quite a revelation, because it was the beginning of a story, and the story was that of slavery, a very peculiar way of going about things. In Haiti, we are very fond of our founding fathers. We are very fond of our local history, but we sometimes, like omit the most, blatant and most savage of the basic facts of it, which are, that they stem from cupidity and basic, exploitation of men towards men. Anyways, he found out very quickly in France the whole debacle of the slave trade, and how France was particularly inserted in it. The French came very late in the game of colonizing the New World, as it's called, and they showed up and managed to secure very little bits of land here and there, some parts of Canada, and peculiarly half of an island, and in the Caribbean, and that half of an island is the history of my country. Anyways, I will start. What do I do with this? Just
Spacebar. Spacebar. Just push the spacebar. Oh,
okay. This was my first installation, and I will go very briefly with this whole thing by showing just different points in space of how this whole process came to be. So I was invited, as I said, to Paris, and I presented a major installation there, which took me a year to prepare and to look into. So the story, as I was saying, the story of the slave trade and the French is a very particular one, because first of all, the French, as I said, not only it came very late in the game, And even in their quest for slaves, I mean, they came very late in that game too. So they went all over Africa looking for pockets of where they could find and buy slaves. So they brought to one island, to a very small island in the Caribbean, I mean, what it represented, you know, like probably, you know, like a whole configuration, the whole, I mean, the whole of West Africa was brought to a very small place. So, you know, like they didn't, contrary to the Spaniards or contrary to the British, they didn't have counters in West Africa. So they went from port to port, buying bits here, bits there. So they brought to an island people that could not even communicate within themselves. So one of the first things that happened in Haiti was the formation of what is considered the youngest of the Romance language, which is called Creole. And also, you know, like, funny enough, the foundations of a new religion, which is loosely called VODOU. And what it really comprises is like a compilation, an amalgamation of, you know, like very different rites and beliefs stemming from, you know, like places from, you know, like areas in the north of Africa, like Mauritania, and all the way down to places like Angola. So I mean, Haiti in such a small territory really encompasses, you know, like practically the whole of the West African seaboard, and it's a very particular and peculiar situation, which is going, as you will see, I mean, inform the whole history of that country. In this particular installation, what I wanted to show was the plight of the slaves themselves, and in the panels that I presented, which are accompanied, as you will see later, by a group of sculptures. Here, the sculptures were not in this particular shot, in this particular presentation. I wanted to create like an altarpiece towards towards the slaves. So of course, you know, like there's a French saying that the fish rots by the head. So to show that these people were like dying, and because they had no free will, green heads, a sign of, you know, like rotten flesh. This, the mask as a West African symbol, but also, you know, like the fact that also that they're devoid of, you know, like of individuality. On the left, larger panel, you have the leaving of Africa. The central panel, the middle crossing, with the symbols of the Akan tribes of the West Africa inscribed in the oars, with the superimposition of the Christian church, symbolized by the fish. And also, you know, like on the other side, you know, like the works on the plantations in the colonies, and to finish with the whole thing, to create like a whole religious kind of enterprise, was the concept of the meek inheriting the earth, which is and they are here as angels. I'll give more details of the particular works, so you can see. Okay. There you go. Forward. Thank you. And this is how it was installed at the Musée des Arts Africains Océaniens in Paris. So, I mean, during the whole time I was there, it was 2 years of research where I was really informed with not only the history of Haiti. I had to go and do research at the marine departments and find out, first of all, you know, like the way the French went about, you know, like the gathering of their slaves. It was like a whole history that I had to uncover, because it has not been really documented properly nor presented in a systematic way, you know, like in any formal way. So I had to do, you know, like I had to go and find professors that had delved in the matter, and I found out that it was a history that really nobody really wanted to hear about, or nobody wanted to, you know, like to talk about. And I found that celebrating the bicentennial of the French Revolution, and particularly with the precepts of, you know, like the equality, fraternity, and whatever they celebrate there, that it was a big omission not to have that particular side of things presented. So it was really, I was the only voice in the whole of this celebration during that period that mentioned the whole plight of what had happened in Haiti, and really the conditions of, like, the black people back then. Anyways, the show went and traveled back to Africa, went to Haiti, and he's now still traveling, I guess. It was in a show in Davenport, Iowa. A few years later, while I was still in France, I was invited by the Mexican and the Spanish government to present my point of view of what had happened during they were celebrating again, like a major event, which was the discovery of the Americas. And this time I decided to look into what had happened to the poor Indians in the New World. Again, the history of Haiti is very peculiar because, it was the first place where the first colony was installed. Columbus settled there. And believe it or not, 20 years after the establishment of Europeans in that island, there were practically no Indians left in that part in Haiti. There was a vast decimation of the yeah. Anyways, thank you. The Indians had been decimated, like quite a systematic way, mainly through the germ contact with new germs and other things of the sort. But the quest for gold also, was a major had a major impact on the way they behaved towards these Indians. So there was a major book written at the time by a man named Bartolomé de las Casas, and it was illustrated by another character named Théodore de Brie. And I had access to this particular book, which is quite rare, but it really is the basis and the book that launched, like what is commonly known today as the Black Legend, where on how the Spaniards destroyed, like a civilization of the New World. Well, basically that story was mainly concentrated on the island of Haiti, where like their arrival and their subsequent mistreatment of the Indians, gave way to, practically the disappearance of that particular group of people on that particular island. And I wanted to make an homage to that, so I presented, this particular group of works again at the Seville Biennial, and it went off to Mexico after that. Again, it followed practically the same format as the former one, because it was a commission and they really liked the other one. So I just provided, the different actors to the whole thing. I'll give you a few more details of this installation. Well, again, here the story went. I literally followed Bartolomé de las Casas plot, which was apparently quite factual, where the Spaniards, to round up the Indians to go and work on the meager gold findings that they had on the island, brought dogs that would round up the Indians. And of course they came in the name of the church and everything, and other symbols here to represent the might of that nation. Here the Princess Anacaona, which was the symbol of one of the the first victim to colonization, and is still honored today, in most of the Caribbean, and has become, a major symbol of resistance in Latin America. A few years later, I was invited to participate in the Atlanta Olympics to present. I had moved to Miami by then, and to represent, they invited me to participate in the Atlanta Olympics, and I thought it was very funny, and I asked myself, how would I do this thing? How would I go and participate? So I decided to rally up the VODOU Pantheon of Haiti and bring them, stock and barrel all the way up to Atlanta to meet their cousins, because I guess it would be the first time they would do so. So I decided to look into and do some research concerning this, and I found out that when gods were displaced, the people that did it most significantly and most in the most systematic way were the Romans. When they went in their major campaigns, they brought like huge churches that were brought in with tents, and and I've found a book that explained how they did the whole thing. So they would make like the whole Pantheon in the format of busts, and that they would present in these tents, on very beautiful stands, so that the soldiers would go to pray towards their gods, before they went to war. So I decided to follow the same format and created a whole Pantheon, a whole Parthenon, as it's called, and brought it to Atlanta. And here it is, as it was installed recently at the Bass Museum in Miami. And the format, as you can see, is this bust format. By the way, these gods do not have real representation in the voodoo. There's no real canons for them. So I had to really literally invent the whole body of these individuals, or whatever you want to. They're called really mysteries. That's what they're called, and they're usually represented by very simple drawings done on the floor, and very schematic drawings. So I had to give them form and shape. And also, what was funny about this whole installation is that I had got the financing to do it, and I literally had maybe like 40 days to create 30 busts. So it was like making one in the morning, create the mold in the afternoon, and having it poured at the foundry during the night. And so it was such a fast process that if you look at them very carefully, it was like almost like I started like using them like the basic molds, like a potato head. I would take the nose and plant it on the other hand. It was until this year that I finally asked a friend of mine who's like a social anthropologist to come and identify and help me give names to them. So finally we have a small catalog that identify all of them and give them like who they are and what they are. Anyways, I'll show a few of them to you. Accompanying the whole thing was this group of works, these 4 panels depicting the whole drama again of the gods, this time as slaves, leaving Africa, the Middle Passage, and of course Baon Samedi, which is the god of death, and he's taking over Haiti. And to bring the whole thing full circle into the contemporary world, the goddess of love being intercepted by the Coast Guard. So the whole thing, to bring it up to date. Some of these gods, as you can well see, here are some of the major spirits in the Voodoo Pantheon. To the left, with the top hat, is Baon Samedi, who's not only the god of death, but also the god of sex. So he's a very interesting character, especially when one lives in Miami Beach. So one is very close to that all the time. The most important one of the Voodoo Pantheon, to give you an idea, and if you want to know, all of these gods come, when you really look at them, I had to do research to find out who they were. They come from all over West Africa. The other guy that well, let me see if I can go back. No.
You want to go back?
Sorry, this one. To the right of Baon Samedi, the one with the top hat, is the king of Angola. The Baon Samedi concept, that particular spirit, it comes from Dahomey. Dahomey is like in the basin, the Nigerian sea basin. Meanwhile, this other character, which is to the right, is called the king of Angola. That's to show you, and this is like such a distance away that these people would have never met. In Africa, back then, when when this whole story is supposed to be happening. So Haiti is really the first Pan-Africanist country, before the term was ever coined. Anyways, to continue, I'll show you one of the most important deities, and it's to the right. His name is Dambala, and he's a serpent god from all the Akan tribes. And he really represents the concept of time, the serpent eating its tail, and which is, you know, like an unending process, a circular concept of time. So and this is my way of presenting him. So I've created, you know, like in the process, a whole cast of characters, which I've been using ever since in my work, as you will see further on. The one to the left here is Loco, and Gambois, and he is the spirit of the how would I say? He's a medicine man. He's the spirit of the tree that has not seen civilization, i.e., the one that contains all the powers of the healing powers. And so he's a very interesting god, and he's respected, you know, like in a lot of countries in West Africa, and also in Haiti and elsewhere in the Caribbean. And the divine hand to show you about the syncretism between the two religions, and the way, you know, like the whole formation of this particular religion and its syncretic characteristics. Where, for example, you know, like the divine hand, which is, you know, like a symbol, a Christian symbol, is incorporated in the whole concept there. The thunder and lightning, and these are a few works that were stemming from that. And it was very interesting to go back to Africa and to confront the different and how different things have evolved in the New World compared to, you know, like to West Africa. So when I got there, first of all, they didn't believe that I could be talking about the same gods, because what they saw in my work were, you know, like, I mean, first of all, they thought that I was a total heretic, and also they thought that it was totally, first of all, totally Christianized because of the cross. And I tried to explain them, you know, like that this was the way it was seen over there. Anyways, it was quite an interesting voyage back to Africa, and realize, you know, like that things don't stand still nowhere, and that, you know, like concept of home, concept of, you know, like of religion as a monolith, or, I mean, really just does not exist. It just permeates and flows with, you know, like the ways life goes, and how experiences of people and their conditions, to put it mildly. And recently I did I was invited to present another installation, and this time it was a commission by a museum in the Midwest, and they just wanted me to do something, and it was at a time when Haiti, which has always been in turmoil, seemed to be more in turmoil than other times. So I decided to, since I had just moved to Miami, I decided to create a whole installation which will talk about Haiti losing its spirits, and also making people aware in South Florida of what was coming, like, guess who's coming for dinner, you know? So I created the whole regatta of boats, of simile boats and things like that. It was a major, it took me a year to create this installation, and a major polyptych in the background, which gave, you know, like what happens when people migrate. And if you look carefully, the central panel is really literally the history of not a very important deity in West Africa. He's mostly a folk kind of hero, Anansi the spider. And guess what? He's moved to America and he's become Spider-Man. I'm convinced of that. On the right side, you have the god of war. I mean, this was at the time of the first Gulf War, so of course he's giving a hand to the Americans. And to the left is Erzuli, the goddess of love, which joined a titty club in South Beach. So I mean, everybody's got to survive, no? Anyways, here they are, and here she is in the in the process of all these things, one learns all sorts of details. The cosmogony in West Africa is completely different from the one in the Western world, for say. And contrary to the ways God's in spirit circulates in the West, the ones in West Africa go underwater. So it's like an underwater world. So I try to convey this in this by just putting the flowers over sand in this installation. Details of the work. This is Grand Bois again, the medicine man. Details of the work. And these are works that I've been doing right now, and I've been trying to create a cordon of deities for the city of Miami to protect it, since I'm living there. So I'm planting them, you know, like all over near beaches and stuff like that. I've managed to place one at a very fancy building on South Beach. Another one, the goddess of this one is installed at the mouth of the river, Miami River. So I have to do about 4 or 5 more, and maybe we won't get any more hurricanes there. Anyways, they told me to be a little bit more concise. Is that okay? Should
You're
I?
doing good. You're doing fine.
Okay, so but I think, well, thank you. If you have any questions, and maybe that's the time to ask me or Noel or Maria Fernanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Edouard.